food can be transported to a centralized processing station, sorted, and then reprocessed into vacuum-packed meals to be redistributed to households in need of assistance.
That sounds so great. Thank you so much for sharing. So now I'm going to go on to interview your team. So my first question is, why do you see food waste as a serious issue in the United States?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. One thing we need to understand is when we talk about food waste, according to FAO, about 70% of water used to grow one pair of apple, just one apple, will be wasted. So when there is food waste, all the resources, all the efforts imputed into such activity are all wasted. Not only that, it contributes to climate actions. So the interconnection between just a single act and its multifactorial effect on other areas make it germane, especially in a developed country like the United States. So if I get, for example, if I just get one pair of pizza from, let's say, pizza shop or whatever shop I get it from, and I only eat a quarter of it and waste the remaining, all the ingredients, all the foodstuffs and resources spent in producing that have been wasted. So it accumulates to the effect of, number one, extending the achievement of the SDG 2 further away from 2030. Number two, contribute to methane gas emission, because such food will later result in the landfills, thereby making our environment no longer conducive for living. Also, it relates to extending the gap between the highest paid and the lower paid community.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. So our next question is, what makes this project efficient and easily distributed in other areas?
Yes, so compared to conventional food banks, households in need of assistance may subscribe to our project, our program through applications like phone applications or through websites, and receive deliveries of food that won't take much time to prepare. And this is going to save their time on getting food and cooking, and allows us to standardize the nutrient contents of food that we distribute. We also plan to partner with the local governments to help identify potential subscribers, target households using their database. We also prioritize the source of food surplus in large retail sectors like local grocery stations, where the amount of surplus food available is generally stable and it covers a great variety.
And what challenges do you think you'll face when partnering with the government?
Yeah, one of the challenges we think we have with the government is in terms of food safety and also food quality, because they'll be concerned about, okay, if you get these foods, maybe food leftovers, maybe food, whatever food you get from the food services like, say, Target or Walmart and the rest of people like that, how are you sure that the food still retains its nutritional value? How are you sure that food still retains its shelf life? So these are one of the challenges that we face. But however, it's not a challenge because we put this in front of our decision making. We won't just get any kind of food. We will evaluate what kind of food we are getting from the retailers.
Thank you so much for sharing this information on your project. I'll hand it over to my colleague Pavin, who will introduce our next team.
Thank you, Team 11, for sharing your project. Next, we'll be hearing from Team 19, who will be represented by Edwin Ramos and Davrina Renata. Edwin has a nursery degree with a specialization in public health and occupational nurse. He is currently an undergraduate student in law at the University of Sao Paulo. And Davrina is a PhD student in nutritional biology at the University of California, Davis. She has extensive nutrition research and health promotion experiences involving mothers and children, and is currently leading a maternal empowerment program to reduce food waste in Indonesia. Thank you for being here, and we're excited to hear more about your project. Can you give us a brief summary of your project?
Yeah, sure. So we believe that nutritious foods are fundamental right for all. And this is more than moral duty. This is a legally binding responsibility for the government. However, community could act as the catalyst for this improvement. So we propose an End Hunger Community Center to streamline the improvement of food production, food distribution, and consumption of foods by empowering the local resources and communities. There will be three main activities of this center, which is interconnected. The first one is through local food coverage, or LFC. Basically, it's the local food distribution using food stamps with a personalized approach, meaning that it will be integrated with the health data. So it could decide which foods should be provided for each individuals. And then the second one is by training on healthy eating models and home cooks, which is also to grow home-based food markets, one of the provider for the LFC. And this is to ensure, because we're not only concerned about the sufficiencies of the food, but also how it would it could provide a sustainable food security, also results in actual improvement of the well-being. And the last one is the center will provide a person who is supervising and fostering the partnership between the private, government, and also community relationships. So through these main activities, we believe that this is a really the key core for having sustainable program and improvement in and ending hunger.
That sounds amazing. So to jump into the Q&A session, the first question is, how would an End Hunger Community Center help address SDG 2?
Hi, everyone. Firstly, local food coverage as part of End Hunger Community Center could help to ensure that not only people living below the poverty line, but also at risk for poverty have access to their rights for health and nutritious food, thus ensuring food security for all, which aligns with SDG target. By limiting the distribution to food purchase, this would ensure that funds are used for their intended purpose and community resilience to food price anomalies. Also, our local food coverage will also require the beneficiaries to attend schools and monthly health checks provided by the government. Therefore, this program also helps to improve school attainment and health status of the community. Importantly, the local food coverage would be personalized through integration with universal health coverage data obtained from healthcare facility, taking into account health conditions of the beneficiary, including malnutrition, including undernourishment, and child stunting. And lastly, empowering home-based food markets and smallholder farmers would promote productive of local food producers and communities that aligns with SDG targets on productive and sustainable agriculture. We will focus on equal opportunity for all with a core of circular economics.
That's great. The second question is, what would be the ideal location for your center?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question. So our project is basically flexible and adaptive to the local context and situation, but we would say that first thing is we would prioritize countries or areas that most need it. For example, we could use Global Hunger Index, or GHI 2022, for example, as a reference. And then the second one, we believe that it should be to start with, we believe that it should be an area having active community participation, either having homeowner association, mothers association, or for example, in my home country, Indonesia, we're having female community health volunteers structure. So that is beneficial for to start with for the project. And then lastly is the area having government has priority on food security and nutrition, because we believe that fostering the partnership between the government, community, and also private sectors is the core to make the program sustainable.
Great. I think you kind of touched on my third question, which is, what would be some necessary partnerships for the community in order to carry out your proposed project?
Okay, thanks for asking. First of all, every person or entity who wants to help will be welcome. But specifically, first, people from the local community, because they can be active in their community center, you know, helping with the knowledge and resource if they have. The farmers or homeowners associations should be also a point of interaction between these people. Second, government, especially for areas with high prevalence of malnutrition, the program will ask the government to send professional, social assistants, nutritionists, medical doctors, etc., to the centers for health checks. Third, company industries, they can help provide knowledge, know-how with the company's experts. And also they can help with donation of food, grams, but the know-how here can also be a mentorship for small farmers. And the last one, academic institution, because producing knowledge in the university and spreading in the society can improve the capacity of the locals to produce, to cultivate, and cook the local foods. Agricultural tips they can provide to those people, nutritional tips, health assistance to the community center.
Thank you so much for sharing this information on your project. I'll hand it
You're
over to
welcome.
my colleague Molly, who will introduce our next team.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. We're going to be moving on to our next team, which is Team 15 out of this big project. And Luisa Gazola and Akash Mishra will be representing Team 15. Their proposal aims to address the consumption of ultra-processed foods and generate greater competitiveness in food production, especially favoring regional foods. Akash is a master's student in advanced computer science at Newcastle University, where he has worked on advanced data structures and algorithms, cloud computing, software development, AI, and data science. He is deeply committed to addressing global hunger, and he has a keen interest in exploring new cultures and learning new languages. Luisa Gazola is a Brazilian nutritionist with a master's degree from the Universidade Federal of Minas Gerais. She is a doctoral student at the Nutrition and Public Health program at the University São Paulo and a member of the Núcleo de Pesquisas Epidemiológicas em Nutrição e Saúde. Thank you guys for being here. And to our attendees, if you have questions throughout this interview or about the past interview, you can start using the Q&A function because that will be happening right after this interview. Okay, now Akash and Luisa, can you guys tell us a little bit about your team or what time zones most of you are in, or just about your project?
Hello. My team's proposal is about the impact of tax in production and consumption of ultra-processed foods that can collaborate with the goal of sustainable development, zero hunger, and sustainable agriculture. The increased consumption of ultra-processed foods is a common point in the promotion of hunger, hidden hunger, obesity, and climate change, which are related to the Sustainable Development Goal 2. Ultra-processed foods are formulations of ingredients mostly of exclusive industrial use that result from a series of industrial processes, hence ultra-processes. Colors, flavors, emulsifiers, and other additives are frequently added to make the final product palatable or hyper-palatable. Processes and with sophisticated packaging, usually with synthetic materials. Soy, wheat, corn, and sugar are basic ingredients for the ultra-processed industry and meat production. Data on the production of these commodities show growth in productivity and also in the area occupied by these monocultures. In addition to causing various environmental damage due to the way they are cultivated, these four foods replace the production of traditional foods, generating a reduction in supply and consequently an increase in prices, thus promoting and aggravating situations of food insecurity. Evidence for around the world shows a positive association between consumption of ultra-processed foods and weight gain and non-communicable chronic disease. The creation of global minimum tax can help achieve the goal too, as incubating these products will reflect throughout the food supply chain. It is expected to generate a great competitiveness in food production, favoring regional foods from producing countries and raising the prices of ultra-processed foods worldwide to discourage the purchase of these products. In addition, the collection of these taxes can be directed towards food and nutritional security policies, which aim to guarantee food in sufficient quantity and quality, which respects the local food culture and which is based on sustainable agriculture.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Yeah, so I know you touched a little bit on the emulsifiers and the colors and the different ingredients that make up most of these ultra-processed foods and the effect that it has on the market, but can you talk just a little bit more about how the increased consumption of these ultra-processed foods directly correlates to hidden hunger, obesity, and climate change as well?
Yes, Akash, do you
Yeah.
say?
Yes. Yes. As per the knowledge, ultra processed food is really not good for our body and and the society. So we have to promote the local vendor uh, for the food, and also main thing was the policy maker. If you have the good policy maker, then we can promote our local vendor, local farmer. If you promote our local vendor, local farmer, then it also affect in our body, because the ultra processed food, it is not the original food that we are consuming nowadays. But in saying mostly in UK, Canada, or a different world, they are mainly focusing on the ultra processed food. That was not good nowadays. We have to more be focused on the reality food that we grow on the farmer land.
Yes, definitely. I think being in touch with how food is grown around you and kind of focusing on the whole foods is super important. So, how, for all of our attendees and us watching and wanting to help this issue, how can we discourage the production and consumption of ultra processed foods?
Uh,
It's a big topic.
No, only one thing we can do, that we could not make in the 1 day decision that on the very next day we could not take the ultra processed food. It will go on a long time, because we have to make such a policy and such a like we nowadays we are mainly focusing on our why first question we have to keep in the mind, why we are taking ultra processed food, because we have less time to cook the original food. That's we are taking the ultra processed food, and we could not mainly focus on our health. We are only focusing on what we are doing outside, what work everyone has the work to do. But we have to also, because health is very important part of our life, because if there was no health, you could not go out to work and now work, everything like that. In that reason, if you want to stop the ultra processed food, first of all, policymakers should be think upon that. We have to promote the local vendor, local farmer, because as we are not promoting our local farmer, because it was not good. We have to promote our local farmer, because the natural vegetation, it really a good because previous time, if you go back, you can see the people health was so good, and nowadays we can see the health condition of the nowadays people were not good. Obesity mainly. That's all.
Yeah, perfect. I think that covered it, basically. So would you say then that your biggest potential challenge would be just the lack of visibility of the local farmers and vendors around us? Or what would you say your biggest challenge has been in creating this project?
No, I'm saying that not because we have to go it step by step. If you achieve that we could not take the ultra processed food, we have to go it step by step. First step was the local farmer, local vendor. We have to promote. After that, this food will be in global scale. If we do in our global scale, then it will really one day we could think that we could not consume the food item that we are very harmful for our body.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then I think our last question is, if you, when in doing this project, have you run into a lot of the other sustainable development goals, or is this project mostly only been on global hunger? I know so many of these issues are so interdisciplinary and run into so many other issues as well.
Pardon, please go ahead again.
Yeah, like has your project overlapped with some of the other sustainable development goals from the UN list, or is it mainly just been on this one? Like, for example, do you find your project running into issues of climate change or production lines or lack of structure and government or anything like that?
Everything, because first I'm saying the policy. Second, the climate change is the main important thing, because if you have a certain that in certain time there will be no raining like that, we have poor harvesting system, we have poor like. First of all, we have to make a good policy. If we make a good policy now, climate will also change, because as we know that everyone in the world try to make a new climate change policy, as we read about that previously. So climate change policy maker, they are the main crucial part for the human health nowadays. If we want a better life for the coming generation, then we have to make a good policy for our new generation, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not just hunger, it's more complicated than that.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, definitely. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I think that concludes our main 3 interviews, and we're going to move on to the Q&A section. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Ariana, and she's going to take it from here. And if you haven't put in your questions through Q&A yet, you can drop them in the comments or put them in now. We'll be looking.
Yeah, so we'll now be starting our Q&A section. So our first question is actually asking for a webpage link to the projects. I believe that will be provided shortly. And also I wanted to ask Team 11, how did your team manage the process of working together virtually across continents? And what were some challenges that you encountered when you were working towards a solution?
Yeah, one of the challenges we encountered was time. Coming from countries like Costa Rica, Canada, then 2 of us in the United States. Yes, 2 of us in the United States are on different time zones. So how we fix that, we have a WhatsApp group where we discuss, and also we use a time scheduling website to select time. Eventually, we just have a consensus on a specific time to meet, and each of us has to compromise at one point or the other. So in that, we made an agreement, we are meeting at this time, and though not everyone was present, and most of us were able to meet up, and that's how we're able to. Another challenge we had was in terms of choosing topic. Like 2 different of my team members, they suggested 2 different topics, and we have to evaluate it and see, and each one was willing to agree with whatever the group decision is. So that's how we're able to resolve whatever issues we have.
Yeah, that is totally understandable. And I'd also like to open up that question to any other team who'd like to provide a response as to any challenges that they might have encountered working across continents.
Yeah, I could add on that, answer on that question. So, like it's been mentioned that time zones, it's I think that's the main challenges. So in our group, we have 5 different time zones for now. So it is quite challenging, but I think what I would like to try to raise is that there's actually I would say like benefit having team members from different countries or even continents, because the way we discuss, for example, our idea on End Hunger Community Center and local food coverage is actually coming from case studies from our countries, or each countries. Bolsa Familia in Brazil, SNAP program in the United States, or in Indonesia, we have female community health volunteers program, or cadre. So I feel like that's the beauty, but definitely like the time zones is the main challenges. But yeah, we're trying to enjoy that, and I think the benefit like outweigh the challenge that we faced. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I could definitely see how all those different global perspectives really help kind of strengthen the proposal. Yeah, so another question would be, what are the next steps that you will be taking to advance your project? And that could go towards any team that would like to respond. Just make sure to state your team name before.
Yeah, I could just start. Group 19, we're working on the End Hunger Community Center. I think I saw questions too, like how could you like summarize one sentence on our project? It's basically, it says the way we streamline the improvement of food production, distribution, and consumption through empowering local resources and communities. And the next step is we're now trying to explore the pros and cons in terms of implementation of the program. And we're also trying to compare our proposal to the case studies or existing programs. And the last thing is that we're trying to explore how to integrate circular economy aspect to our program, so that it would also help to improve it would have like economic benefits also, because when we're talking about hunger, for insecurity or malnutrition, something like that, economic context or economic factors is one of the main things that we should improve and working on. So yeah, that would be the next steps of our team. And also the mentorship, we're looking forward for that. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And next question would be, did working on this project influence other future projects? If so, would you mind elaborating? I'll ask that question to team 11.
I'm sorry, is it the question regarding funding?
It's regarding future projects. So did this project somehow influence any other future project?
Yes, because the current focus of our project is on reprocessing food surplus into packaged food. And that has incentivized us to think, because, well, redistributing packaged food will have many advantages in terms of reduced volume in transportation and reduce the time for preparation, but also brings up this new question about the waste generated by deposited packages. So we're trying to think, we're trying to find out whether there is any like biodegradable packages that are suitable for, to be used on prepared meals that does not cause as much of environmental damages. So we're thinking about that, and we're also trying to figure out to see how much, whether we can obtain government subsidies or develop to provide extra nudges to companies and the retail sectors in developing this partnership with our organization. Yeah, that's been some of the future directions that related to our project right now.
Great, thank you. And I'd like to ask, I'd like to ask Team 19, what is one main point you'd want the audience to take away from your project?
Yeah, the main key takeaway from our project is that we would like audience to know is that we believe that empowering community is powerful, and there are a lot of existing programs working on community empowerment, and that the changes that we would like to see, it would be accelerated and fostered by empowering this community. So never underestimate the empowering local resources, local communities, smallholder farmers, or something like that. So yeah, we're trying to empower them and seeing them as the agent of change in these issues.
Great, thank you so much for that information. We actually did get a few more questions from the audience, and one of them is wanting to ask Team 19, what is the content of the healthy module you have?
Yeah, we're exploring. Yeah, I discussed with Edifan too about this, and we're exploring some existing models. But the first one, it should be based on the food-based guidelines of the countries. That's the first things that should be highlighted. And the second one is that it should be also we should be having some subpopulation adapted models. So for example, pregnancy related models, lactation related models. So, or like children, infants. So it should be subpopulation adapted. And then the last one is having those models integrated starting from and comprehensive, starting from the food, like food shop, like buying the foods, processing the foods, food consumption, and then how to reduce the food waste. So having those approach is really crucial for the models, and having subpopulation adapted approach, and also adjust with the food-based guideline in each respective countries.
Great, thank you so much. And our next question is directed towards Team 11. How are you managing funds for the application and website you're working on?
Yeah, regarding the application, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, regarding the application, it's a new addition to our project. So we've not, it's what is an idea we have to incorporate technology into our project. So it's not what we've started to work on immediately.
Can I add to him?
Yeah, of course.
So we think that for the startup funds regarding the formation of the application as well as the website, we can rely on donations. But I think what will cost the most in this project is the operation cost regarding transportation, regarding hiring professionals in food reprocessing, sorting, and the distribution. And also the building of facilities that has the capacity to reprocess foods like food surplus in bulks. For that part, I think we might have to rely on government subsidies, public fundings. Yeah, that's our current plan.
Great, and our next question is for Team 19. And it is, what has been the most surprising thing you have learned about your topic during this process?
Yeah, I think, yeah, we think the most surprising thing is that although there are potentials to empower local communities and resources, there are a lot of smallholder farmers, home-based food markets growing. However, efforts on empowering them is a little bit lacking. And the way we could connect them to the government is also still challenging. So that's why we come up with this idea of End Hunger Community Center, and also starting from the existing program. So, it's not something that is hard to pursue because we're starting from the ongoing program. It's been there, for example, Bolsa Familia. We also mentioned SNAP program and Female Community Health Volunteers Program in Indonesia. So it's been there, but how we try to connect them and empowering the local resources or local communities. And sometimes like people say that, oh, you're just doing training, so what would be the impact? Could be really impact, could be like really impacting the behavior changes overall. It could, if I could add one of the program, for example, in Indonesia on food waste that I'm being involved in, it could reduce the food waste to 60% reduction only by training. So the way we could integrate the local food distribution or local food coverage that is already there in Bolsa Familia, for example, or SNAP program, with the training itself, empowering the local communities, also having supervisor to foster the partnership between the government, community, and also the private sectors is I think something that's worth to try for like the near future. So that is one of the surprising things for us.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And I'd also like to extend that question to the rest of the teams. And what have been some surprising things you found in this experience?
Yeah, so Team 11. So one of the surprising things we found is how big the mismatch is between the overproduction of food in the United States and the amount of or the extent of food insecurity that is present in this country. So like almost about 40% of all food that are produced in the United States is wasted, according to statistics, which has costed waste of cropland and the freshwater resources, and has generated significant emissions of carbon dioxide each year. Well, at the same time, there is about 35 million Americans who lack consistent access to adequate and nutritious food, and this estimates is gone up after the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think we're just surprised to learn that in a developed industrialized country, there presents such a mismatch between the food production and the amount of people who's still suffering from hunger. And there needs to be a more efficient system for food redistribution in order to solve this problem and to reduce the amount of waste that's being generated.
Great, thank you so much for sharing, and I'll hand it over to the next team. Or maybe we can now start closing up. So thank you guys so much for coming today and sharing your proposals. And thank you to all of our attendants. We're really thankful for University Global Coalition for establishing the SDG Action and Awareness Week. You can check out their other events this week at the link in the chat below. Please also feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to connect and collaborate on these important issues and to advance the SDGs around the world.